So we've had a TNC permit for now going on since October 2014 to now. So we're not in a pilot program anymore. We've moved out of the pilot and given them a regular permit. Anyway, just like CTAC, SFO over the last year has grown by leaps and bounds. We processed over 51 million passengers last year. And now we are, I believe, sixth in the nation, sixth busiest airport in the nation. We've grown 9.5% in international traffic, 6.7% total, 5.8% domestic traffic. We're in a unique situation now where we're running out of gate space. And right before I left, I purchased 2 co-buses to start running ramp operations with loading on the ramp. And that's going to start next month. Just a little bit of humor. I think you guys have all heard about TNCs, but there are many more TNCs than just Uber and Lyft and other TNCs that you've heard of locally. So here, this TNC is called Ola. This is out of India. And Uber, to compete with Ola, also has Uber Moto in India. As you can see, transportation, I mean, talking about disruptive transportation, right? There you go, there's a cow that's being transported on a motorcycle. And it says Kawasaki on the bottom. Just want to highlight that. Here's Didi Kuwaiti. That's another company, which you probably haven't heard of. That's a very large company out of China that transports Chinese passengers, which Lyft made a partnership with to provide Chinese passengers when they come to the US so they could use their Didi application to ride Lyft. And if Lyft passengers go to China, they can use the Didi application there. Further, I'll tell you how the lines are blurring as things move forward a little bit. Zimride. Has anybody ever heard of Zimride? When I first met with John Zimmer and Logan Green, who are the originators of Zimride, now Lyft, John Zimmer told me that he got his idea to create Zimride when he was in Zimbabwe, and he saw that. And he said, this is a great concept. People just ride on one vehicle and they go everywhere. So he came up with the concept. So anyway, that's Zimride from Zimbabwe. And here's Uber Pool Autonomous Camel Rides. This is a new service that Uber is going to be starting pretty soon in the desert, where a camel will come pick you up and take you wherever autonomously you want them to go. Anyway, just a little bit of humor for this morning. So all the companies that I mentioned, well, we have Uber, Wings, and Lyft at SFO. Those are the 3 that we have. Ola's out of India, Didi's out of China. But you could see all the other people that are jumping in to this TNC bandwagon now. You have Mercedes that has partners with Uber. Lyft and GM have partnered. Down on the bottom it says Carpool Ways. That's another company that I recently met with. They are owned by Google. And Google came to us in the sense saying that we're going to start providing, if you may, carpool services to people that are going in different directions. And oh, by the way, if they're going towards a direction that the airport comes in the way, we'll be dropping them off at the airport as well. I said, stop, you got to pay a trip fee if you're going to do that. It's not a carpool anymore because you're entering a commercial zone. They don't agree with me, but that's where that conversation's at. Hop, Skip, and Drive is a company that picks up kids, basically, and transports kids. So it's for children only. And Chariot for Women is a company that the drivers are women, and they only take female passengers. So it's kind of a unique concept. Down on the bottom is Ford. They are partnering with multiple different companies that are type of TNC, autonomous vehicle type of companies. So you can see the larger folks are getting into the game now. Ford, GM, Mercedes, Volvo, matter of fact, which I don't have listed. I do have listed up there. Volvo is partnering with Uber on autonomous vehicles, and they're trying that out pretty soon here in Philadelphia, I believe. Pittsburgh, sorry. Thanks for the correction. Anyway, so the shared autonomy. I've shared this in a few presentations ago in a meeting. I shared this, that today we are all owning vehicles, driving vehicles around, but now we're in the shared economy where Uber, Lyft, and all these guys are giving us a ride. The next stage is the shared autonomy. I won't talk about shared autonomy in this presentation too much because I have something else exciting to share with you, which I try to bring to this group to see and be visionary and look forward and see what else is coming our way. So the shared autonomy is definitely here. Autonomous vehicles are definitely driving around. And now TNCs are getting into the autonomous vehicle game. Landside revenues, here's a quick shot of our revenue. 104 million in FY15, and we've seen an increase of 7.1%, 111.9 million in 16. So the revenue has gone up by 7.1%. Some of it has to be attributed to the TNCs. Commercial ground transportation mode split. This is an interesting slide here. If you look at it, in 2014, just when the TNCs started, this slide goes from, not for our fiscal year, but goes from October to the end of 2014. And the other slide shows you the entire 2016 fiscal year. So TNCs, when they started in the first 3 months, they were 19.2% of SFO's ground transportation. If you see now, they're 61% of SFO's ground transportation. So they have significantly ramped up operations. There are a lot of people taking TNCs. I stand at the international curb sometimes, and I see people getting off of our Emirates flights from Dubai saying, where do I catch Uber from? So it's getting to where the international passengers are also looking for it. Revenue, so far, SFO has collected over $25 million in trip fees from TNCs. How many rides have TNCs provided combined since October? It's over 6 million. That's how many rides they've provided in and out of SFO. You play that? Thanks. How do we collect all this revenue?
Face some unique challenges in the integration of transportation network companies, or TNCs, into their existing ground transportation model. There's an immediate need for good trip tracking information for billing verification, roadway planning, and enforcement activities. It's a need that's more unique by the fact that it involves private vehicles used intermittently for commercial purposes, operated by drivers who make work for multiple companies. At SFO, these challenges were addressed through the creation of a tracking system for TNCs. This system is now available for other airports to use, thanks to a licensing agreement through the American Association of Airport Executives, or AAAE. Here's how it works. TNCs already use their mobile app to broadcast the vehicle's location to potential customers. As part of the permit with the airport, TNCs agree to supply similar information to the tracking system. The airport then defines the geographical boundary of the area where TNC vehicles are to be tracked. Anytime a TNC's vehicle enters or exits the boundary, or picks up or drops off within the area, the TNC sends a notification to the tracking system. The system provides a host of data elements in real time, including the vehicle's license plate, driver ID, and location, and also displays the location of TNC transactions around the airport. Subscribing airports can also configure the data results to create customized management reports tailored to their own unique needs. This combination of information is especially useful for enforcement activities, allowing officers to verify that a TNC transaction is being properly reported and is following all rules and regulations.
So the TNC tracking system is really an essential tool for landside planning and operations. It gives us a way to effectively manage these new business models. With this data, we can verify the self-reporting by the TNCs and really ensure that we're meeting the cost recovery requirements.
Well, we're both trying to grow our business.
And frankly, we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel for every airport that we go to across the nation.
So having an industry-leading standard really is a win-win both for TNCs and airports.
The app-based transportation tracking system developed by SFO is now available for airports across the U.S. For more information, please contact the AAAE.
Good for you to see how we collect $25 million of revenue. It's not only self-reported. We track it. Every single transaction is tracked. We get to see it live, and we audit it. And we just finished Uber's audit, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a little bit. So paid taxi trip comparisons really have gone down year over year, about 10% drop. We used to do over 2 million taxi trips a year, and in this last year we saw a 10% drop in that particular mode. Total ground transportation revenue continues to climb. We have not plateaued with TNCs. We still see an increase with TNC activity coming in and out of SFO. And currently our revenues are tracking close to $19 million going forward. I showed this a while back when we were doing the surveys. This data is still current. We still survey passengers, try to see where they're coming from and going. Most of our TNC passengers are coming from San Francisco and the greater Bay Area, San Mateo County being the second largest, which is closest to the airport. Administration fines. This is the ugly part of managing TNCs, right? You have all these TNCs and it's a revolving door of drivers. So even after you train some drivers saying this is what you can do, this is what you cannot do, the TNCs have their own training that they put drivers through to kind of explain to them what the airport rules and regs are, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. Uber has gone as far as behind their trade dress, has posted things on what they're allowed to do on the airport and what they're not, and how to post their trade dress and where to post their trade dress. Yet we still see TNCs violating rules. Just a comparison with the other modes, I've collected roughly close to $4.5 million of $450,000 worth of administrative fines from TNCs. The fines are levied to the TNC because they have the permit with us, not the driver, but the TNC passes it on to the driver, saying you violated the airport's rules, so you need to pay the fine. Most of the fines have been related to a trade dress, not having a trade dress, being staged in a different area where they're not supposed to be staged in, dwelling at the curb because it's an education thing again, saying you will not get a call unless you go to the staging lot. But since TNCs are so used to hanging around in different neighborhoods and that's how they get calls, new drivers think, well, by sitting at the curb, I'll be the first one to get a call. Our enforcement officers stand there and watch, and if it goes over 2 minutes, they go run the license plate, find out what that data is, which company they're working for at that particular time. The challenge has come where some TNC drivers keep two apps open, so it's Uber and Lyft, so we end up sending administrative fines to both, saying both of you were here, not only one. So, and we get very few appeals because we can go back to our data and say, here are the pings, you send us the pings, these are the pings, this is the person that was here. So appeals are very minimal coming from the TNCs. Recently we had a group of really smart interns come in and work for our IT department. So I asked them to do some analysis, ping analysis if you may, to see where all these pings were coming from. One was from MIT, the other one was from, the other two were from UC Berkeley. So they did a lot of analysis of the data and all the pings for July to see where the activity was happening. And they pointed out to us where some of the cell phone lots, where some of these TNCs were hanging out. So then we used that data to inform our enforcement staff, saying, here's where you need to start paying attention to. They also did some queue wait time analysis for us. I asked them to see how long does it take a TNC to get out of a lot once they get into the lot. And during the different times of the day, the average is 50 minutes. Taxis at SFO now has become roughly 2 hours to 2.5 hours. So it's 50 minutes for a TNC to come in and out. During the morning hours, obviously, there aren't that many flights coming in, so they dwell there longer. So some TNC drivers are aware of that, others are not. They still just sit there in the staging lot thinking they'll get a call. So they're getting used to it, and that's just a slide that shows that. Queue length. So I also asked them to see what the queue length is in the TNC lot. We have 146 parking spots for TNCs. Twice during the day, we have to close the lot because there's too many TNCs trying to come in. So basically, we close the lot. We tell them there's no room. The only option they have is to get on the freeway and do something else. TNCs, I've met with Uber and Lyft, and they themselves try to put out emails to their drivers saying that drivers that are not waiting at the airport end up making 20 to 30% more revenue than just sitting at the airport. But as Stacy mentioned, this is the same group that used to drive taxis or maybe some other modes. So they have friends, so they hang out sometimes. They come in, they sit there and just chat. But what we do with those guys is we run their plates, the enforcement staff run their plates, and if it comes back that their application is turned off, but they're in the lot, and then we go back and research saying they came in as a Uber or a Lyft, we send an administrative fine saying you're sitting in a lot that is only for active TNC operations, and that's why you get a $200 admin fine. So they stop that behavior real quickly once you start issuing those fines. Does the TNC supply match the demand? We had a demand analysis done on that. Hour by hour, they broke it out when there's oversupply of vehicles and when where the demand is pretty constant. So as I said, these guys were pretty smart. They took all the ping data and then put it all together and figured it all out for us. So the year in review, what do we have so far at SFO? We have 3 TNCs there, still active and running. You saw Rachel in that video. Rachel Sidecar is no longer a company. They don't do TNC services. They're into something else now. We were a little successful this year, passing legislation effective June 27th. All charter party carriers and TNCs are required to do an inspection using a bar automotive mechanic. So these are state mechanics that are state certified. They have to go get a certificate from them saying that their vehicle is in good running condition. Before, it was self-reported where the TNC would say, yeah, the car is running well, everything is good. We did an audit of Uber. We didn't find any significant findings. They were reporting correctly. There was nothing wrong with their revenue. So we were pleased about that. We still have options to audit Lyft or anybody else that we need to audit. So those are part of our permit. We're evaluating all existing ground transportation modes, and as you all know, it gets very political. So currently we are in the middle of an RFP for our shared ride mode, where we have 7 shared ride companies which we're trying to bring down to 3, which is the right thing to do. We had a study done by Lee Fisher which also claimed that that's what we needed to do. But politics always gets into the way, and everybody wants to have a piece in it and want to say in it. So it's still being evaluated. Taxis is another mode I'm evaluating. I have, unlike TNCs, which their staging lot has 140 spots, taxis have 450 parking spaces. I am trying to reduce that lot so we can get some parking back, because we're in desperate need of parking, to the point that most of our staff have given up their parking and are commuting on other transit modes. Obviously, the taxi industry doesn't want us to take the parking lot away, and we're saying we don't need this many taxis here. So we're looking at odd and even and all the different alternatives that are out there. But once again, politics is always coming in the way, trying to stop those things. California regulations are still in flux. The bill for background checks was pulled. Every single time that goes through, it gets watered down to a level where it ends up getting pulled or doesn't make it out of committee. So we'll try again. We'll try to push that through again, and we'll see where that goes. Amongst the largest changes that are coming in California, Governor Brown and the state legislature just agreed to transfer enforcement duties out of the CPUC, out of the California Public Utilities Commission, over to the California State Transportation Agency. And Governor Brown and the legislature, and we know that the CPUC was not able to keep up with the heavy TNC activity, all the vehicles that were there. They weren't even able to keep up with limousine activity. When we at SFO would submit something to them saying their operators are operating illegally without a permit, we would get an answer back saying we're understaffed, we'll get to it when we get to it, and sometimes 7 months later you still question them saying, did you get to it or not, and it's still in a queue somewhere. So that's where we're at with that. Lessons learned and recommendations. Giving a staging lot, just like Stacy, we have a staging lot, we have porta potties, we really don't have too many amenities for them. But yes, they do create a mess. They create fraud issues for us at times. So we have, they're located right next to the United parking lot. So United constantly complains about them throwing trash over their fence. So that's another issue we're dealing with the TNCs, driver education, saying use the garbage cans, use the receptacles, those kind of things. As an airport, really, you can't treat them as you can't treat non-traditional businesses in the traditional manner. These are non-traditional businesses. They're disruptors, they're new technology, they want to change all the rules that are out there, and they really, believe me, they have the bandwidth and the money and the venture capital funding to go after some of these changes. And they have been doing that and proving to the regulators that they're capable of doing this. Every single state that they've been in, they've fought the regulations and try to change them. So you have to remain engaged, really. Every single time a bill comes out, as an airport, you need to comment to keep the level playing field, saying, this is what it is, this is how it should be, this is how all the other modes are. It gets watered down, but if you get something out of it, at least it's better. The other modes now are trying themselves to change the rules a little bit, get them relaxed on insurance, on other requirements. So that's where things are, and we're remaining engaged with all of that. Customer experience, really, you need to be engaged because customers are demanding these services. And that's how the airport is. The airport is neutral. They don't select one mode over the other. They give the opportunity for the customer to decide which way they really want to go. You have to manage the impact at the curb. We really have been seeing unprecedented traffic congestion issues at SFO, which we're looking at now. Unlike SeaTac, we don't have an area where they go. They drop off and pick up both on the departure level of SFO. So they can pull up anywhere on the curb. The TNCs do a good job of guiding their customers to a specific door, and that's how they guide their customers. So they've been doing that. We've been working with TNCs also on enhancements, or they call it algorithmic changes to their dispatching system, which is when Uber does some predictive analysis, and I'll speak about Uber because Uber's been doing this at SFO for a little bit now. When a person lands at SFO and starts activating their app, they know that they're going to be requesting a ride. So what they do is they predict how many passengers are going to get to the curb at a certain time. They start launching their vehicles out of the staging lot before the passenger even gets to the curb. And they tell the driver that start driving towards the airport, you're going to get a dispatch in between from the staging lot to the airport. By the time they're out of their staging area and a mile down the road, they end up getting a dispatch on who their customer is and where they're picking up. So they're doing that a lot, which has reduced congestion. They're also doing pickups in a simultaneous trip where they're dropping somebody off. So in the last month, I looked at the analysis. There were 5,000 such trips. So there were 5,000 less vehicles being dispatched out of the staging lot. A vehicle that was dropping off ended up picking somebody else up before it left the airport. And they pay us for both of those trips because it shows as one drop-off and the other one shows as a pickup. So they're paying for both. Really, you have to have an ability to audit and track and see live data, because if you really want to enforce the rules, and if you have rules that tell them they can operate only a certain way, then you should have an active app that shows you where the TNCs are, where they're dropping off, where they're picking up. What's next? Airport toll road. Ray and I have been talking about it. There are European airports doing this. My staff and I are in the middle of writing a ground transportation master plan for SFO, and toll roads is part of that master plan. I've already plumbed SFO's roadway to activate a toll road if I need to. I don't have room to create a toll plaza, but the readers that I've added out onto the roadway under our current ground transportation management project are multi-protocol. So I can not only track vehicles that I've assigned transponders to, but I can turn on Title 21, which is what the Bay Area and California uses to levy toll. And then if you go through our system, you will be levied a toll if we decide to go that route. To cover ourselves even further, I've also added license plate recognition cameras on the inbound and outbound roadways. So if you come in with a vehicle that doesn't have a transponder tag, the license plate will be picked up and you'll be billed. So that's where we're going if we decide to go with an airport toll road. With the way revenues are going and with the way autonomous vehicles and all these things are coming, we really need to start looking outside the box on how the airport will start collecting revenue to offset the cost for the airlines that are operating there. So I have a video. This is the future that's coming. It's not autonomous, but it's something different. Take a look. Maybe this is coming.
Airbus unveils a flying taxi. Airbus has announced its development of a flying taxi, which aims at solving traffic congestion worldwide. Airbus's electric flying vehicle is currently named the City Airbus. Test flights will be conducted in enclosed flight corridors at the National University of Singapore in mid-2017. The drones can travel to and from locations on the campus and port. Researchers plan to develop a machine vision system to allow the city Airbus to detect obstacles and function completely autonomously. Airbus says it envisions customers ordering rides in the future with their smartphones and city Airbus vehicles landing outside their front doors. Airbus is targeting this product to transport service providers such as Uber. They believe sharing the cost of a flying taxi by multiple customers could lower the price to nearly the same as a normal taxi ride. See a story that really should be animated? Suggest stories to Tomo News now.